about that. And Liz has kids. To get up, and they were like, no, 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 and I was arguing, so they went, all right, good night, and they put me back to sleep. So, and so I woke up a couple hours, then the next day I woke up, they knew what was going on in there, so I woke up, and then the next day they said, oh, would you like to sit up? And I said, no, no, let's get the Nikes, I'm getting dressed. And I picked out 5 outfits, and Dr. Peak actually has this on her Facebook page. There's a whole video how I packed 5 outfits, because I knew I was gonna be in the hospital 5 to 7 days, so I was gonna get up. So I had 5 outfits packed. So I said to the nurse, I'm getting dressed. And she looked at me and she said, okay. And so I got up. She really didn't have a choice, and she kind of knew it. So I got up, and I stood up, and we got dressed, and she said, would you like to sit in the chair? I said, no, no, we're going for a walk. And she said, okay, would you like to walk to the door? I said, no, we're going around the nurse's station. And this is in the ICU. But mind you, this is in the ICU. I was in the ICU for 3 days. And so I made it around the ICU. She goes, you want to go back in the room? I said, no, I'm going to sit, and we're going to talk, and we're going to have a conversation. I didn't last very long. I made some friends in the ICU. I was kind of the life of the party. But it was, if I wasn't the epigenetics, if I wasn't nourishing my body, like Dr. Peak said, the epigenetics, if I wasn't nourishing my body, if I wasn't caring for my body, if I wasn't moving, then that muscle memory that I had programmed myself, it's not just about movement, it's about sleep, it's about meditation. There's an entire holistic puzzle. There's a whole piece that plays into all of it. And if I hadn't have done all of that, I wouldn't have recovered the way that I did.
Thanks for sharing all of that. I mean, we're also at a critical time with a national debate over health care, and I think you understand public policy in this field better than anyone else here. If you can express some of the issues that you think will be affected by what you foresee, we don't know which way it's going to go yet, but what you foresee in Medicaid funding and other funding that does support.
Yeah, I'm deeply concerned. I'm deeply concerned because for 2 reasons. And actually, I'm going to answer that question, but before I do, I just want to say one thing. For those of you in the room who are caregivers and you listen to this story, and if you're like me and you do this kind of perfection thing with yourself all the time, you're like, oh, I really should exercise. I need to be fit, and I need to do more, and and how am I going to do that? And it's stressing you out to even think about how to prepare to protect your brain. I just want to say that's normal. It's very overwhelming. You feel like you're in a desert, and somebody has said, so go get a drink of water, and you're like standing in the desert. Where am I going to find that water? But I think that just try really hard not to be too perfectionistic about it. Like what you can do is what you can do. Get out, take a walk. The meditation is the most efficient, I think, self-care technique around. But I just wanted to address that because I get that a lot in our community. Like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to take care of myself? I can't. So, but this is a good lead into answering the question, which is that it's that, what I say is we don't need more self-care, we need more other care. And what I mean by that is that we need health insurance that's accessible and affordable for all people, especially for women in their 50s who are going to be, so for those of us who had to quit our jobs, so leaving behind our employer-based insurance, in order to take care of our parents, so we're doing the hard work of society that society's not paying for, and now we're not going to be able to get health insurance on the exchange because we're not going to be able to afford it, because we're going to be priced out because of the way the new pricing structure works. And then on top of all of that, if we need Medicaid's assistance to pay for supports and services for our parents, and when you have a parent with Alzheimer's, it's a 10 or 15 year process, and inevitably and invariably will leave you at a point where, and I just want to say this, institutional care is okay. If you have to do that, do not beat yourself up about it. It's to care for somebody with end-stage Alzheimer's in your home, that's just not realistic for many, many people, for most people. What program is there to provide that $70,000 a year facility level care for people with end-stage Alzheimer's? It's Medicaid. And if Medicaid is block granted or put under a per capita cap, and the per capita cap it's a fancy term that just means the states only have a certain amount of money to spend. What are they going to do? What decisions are they going to make? They're going to have to choose children's health care, older health care. So I'm really, really concerned that this group of women who are doing this hard work are the ones who are going to end up in even more of a challenging situation as a result of the policies that are being debated today.
And I think the data show that 2/3 of the people in nursing homes under Medicaid are over age 64.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, they're women, and many of them are African American. So Medicaid pays for, it's essentially a program for very, very old, frail women, many of whom are African American.
Dr. Peak, you wanted to weigh in on what we've been raising, and then we'll bring in all of you with questions.
You say this so well, all of you, that yes, I could sit here and pontificate all day long about the ABZs of what you have to do, and then you're stressed out because you can't even get to the A. Inherently in being a woman, and this has been borne out by some great research, is a boatload of guilt. Okay. And, if self somehow becomes a 4-letter word, yep. And it should never be that way, but I'm giving you a license to chill here. Because what you have to do is realize that science actually shows, and I know you know this cold too, that the people who survive the best are the ones who are able to adapt. And I didn't say perfectly adapt. I said, honey, you just muddle through, but you make it work. So whenever you read all of these great articles we write in prevention and all the rest of it, and then you start immediately stressing out and your cortisol levels are hitting the ceiling, you're like, oh my God. And then you don't even want to start because the P word, perfectionism, of course, I think is attached to our ovaries, even if they're not there anymore. Sort of a phantom experience. What you realize is that do anything. Just, if it's 5 minutes of meditation, if it's a 10-minute walk, research shows those women who kind of muddle through, make it work, and are as resilient as possible, right, are the ones who live long and well relative to everything going on in their life. So just drop the perfectionism, and instead of saying, I expect you, I hope, right, soften the whole thing. Just get up and take small steps and build a really powerful foundation because science backs this. That's the way you lay down the most powerful foundation. And you're right. You are the intervention.
So with that great challenge and encouragement, let's take it to the audience. And please, we have a floating mic, I think. Floating mic? Please just jump in and raise your hand. I'll call on you and ask questions or direct them to whoever. Yes, right there in the middle. If you want to wait for the mic so we can just get the mic to you. Of course, right in the middle, halfway down. Why wouldn't it be? But thank you. Why don't you stand up if you don't mind so we can.
No, I'm sorry. I was just curious about the meditation. I think that's really interesting. And I just was wondering, when you teach these kids, how do you know you're being successful? And how do you know when they're actually getting it versus trying to get it and maybe just going along with it?
Great question. For the longest time, the word meditation was a generic term, and everybody thought all meditations were the same, and it didn't matter what you did. And now, again, brain research has shown that there are 3 different types, basically. One is called focused attention, and that's a concentration form of meditation where you're asked to clear your mind of thoughts. The second is called open monitoring, and that's sort of a mindfulness observational tool. And then the third is self-transcending, which is TM. Now, that's the one I'm an expert at, and that you know immediately because the child closes her or his eyes, and within a minute or 2 of doing it, the body experiences a state of rest, just dramatic. And they'll open their eyes afterwards and they'll say, wow, what was that? And by the way, people say to me, well, you meditate for 20 minutes, transcendental meditation, how do you know when your time is up? And I say, well, look at your watch. You know, it's not, you're not going someplace, it's a response. And so it's very easy to tell, and kids get it immediately. Anyone gets it immediately. So it's a physiological thing. If it was just based on some mental thing, that would be different. So they know.
You know, the physiology on this one is really powerful. In one study done with, and I'm just mentioning the types of meditation that have actually been studied by neuroscientists, what we found was that when you do a transcendental experience, for instance, I'm just throwing it out there, you increase the blood flow to the frontal cortex, which is the CEO of the brain. That's where you learn to make the right decisions, organize, plan, strategize, rein in impulsivity, all irritability, all those things that affect kids. So one of the things you actually see is in a state of restful alertness, which is what it's called, you actually are increasing and enhancing the creative cognitive ability of that child.
And I can testify that I've been doing TM since I was 23 years old. And I remember I got into it, and I was working in television, which is very stressful. And at 4 o'clock
Can
every
attest to
day,
that.
and I would do it twice a day. I do it in the morning, and then at 4 o'clock, no matter what, I go into the ladies' room, and I do 20 minutes, and then I could face the rest of the day. It really is deeply, deeply restorative, and it's easy. Yeah. It's just so easy, yeah.
Believe me, if I can do it, anybody could do it. Yeah.
Yes, right here in the front row. Float the mic up. Going along.
Thank you. Do you all have research that's been done that shows if Alzheimer's or dementia is genetic, if people have a predisposed genetic disposition? And also, do you have research so that, I know you're talking largely about women, but if the person is married or has a spouse, is the incidence of Alzheimer's coming up more with a person that lives on their own independently without being in a committed relationship, whether they're married, partnered, whatever?
The science on this is rather interesting, and it just keeps spilling forth. One of the things that's noted is that men who are widowed and out of relationship actually do much poorer, because for a lot of reasons. One is it's the woman who usually makes those appointments and coordinates healthcare per se, but also there's a powerful relationship between isolation, and I mean toxic isolation. I mean, you know, Thoreau aside, I mean, you know, when you really have very few, if any, social connections and dementia. And so, you know, men oftentimes tend to do that, you know, one man is an island kind of thing. So that really is a gender-specific piece. But we already know about the genetics here. We know that there is a gene, the ApoE4, that is a lipoprotein type gene. And we also know that a man's experience with that gene is very different when he has it than a woman's. Needless to say, Alzheimer's risk increases regardless, but for a woman, it's much, much more. So if you have both hits of the gene, if mom and dad and back and forth, your risk of Alzheimer's increases by 15, okay, by a factor of 15. For a woman, it's always the 15. For a guy, much less so, but it'll still increase. There's just a gender specificity to this that we're trying to suss out. We don't have the answer yet.
Well, just the one other thing, too, is that women live longer than men. So with what we, in the research, we call it longevity risk. With your longevity, there's just a longer period of time in your life where you have the opportunity to get to acquire sort of age-related diseases. And so I always like to say everyone imagines they're going to be that 85-year-old on the ski slopes, and you might be, but then you might, at 95, spend the next 10 years of your life with sort of decline in function, in ability and cognitive function.
And Dr. Bird and Dr. Parakek-Vance are part of a huge study where they're looking for 100 African-American families that have 2 or more people living with Alzheimer's to find out if there is a genetic strain in the African American genetic family that explains the twice as likely incidents. And it's been very sobering for me to go around the country promoting my novel, and for so many African Americans to come to me and say, you know, I had 3 people in my family die of it. I was interviewed in Philadelphia by a wonderful young woman who has a grandmother on one side and a grandfather on the other side currently who are living with Alzheimer's disease. And I was sharing with Dr. Bird that so many people in the African American community come up to me and tell me these kinds of stories. And of course, I give them her email.
We had a question here in the front row.
Hi there, Julie Cassidy. My dad is 90 and living with Alzheimer's in late stage, and that's why I'm here. And I'm also involved with the Alzheimer's Association as an advocate. So I've been living and breathing this stuff quite literally. So I wanted to talk about the meditation piece because that was sort of, in my mind, the final frontier for me. I've chucked perfectionism, no time for it, I can't do it. It'll kill me, for sure, I know that. And I watched my mom struggle with it all her life, and still. So I've gotten rid of that. I left a very stressful job. I launched a business that is much more, it's easy on me, and I'm passionate about it, and I'm excited about it, so I love that. But the meditation piece was the final frontier. And what I found was that if I could find just a few guided meditations, in other words, I tried the whole sitting in a quiet room by myself. I have monkey mind, and I heard this one time, monkey mind, a drunken monkey stung by a scorpion. I heard that one time. That was my mind, and I'm sure everyone can identify with that. But I found that if I could just find a couple of guided meditations to get me underway, then I could get into it. And also, for the timing piece, set your timer on your phone, turn your phone off, and then you can completely let go because you know you'll be awakened or brought back when it's time. So I had those 2 suggestions, but I do wonder, do you recommend, do you have a website, do you have guided meditations that are available to us? I would love to try the Transcendental. I've not gone there yet, and I would really like to, so I thank you for that.
First of all, I want to just comment. What people do, the 4 o'clock in the bathroom, was it bathroom? Bathroom, yeah. I've done a lot, myself, I'm a good Jewish boy. I do a lot of my afternoon meditations in Catholic churches. Synagogues aren't open. Protestant, but Catholic churches are, and they don't mind you sitting in the back with your eyes closed. Oh, there's a good Jewish boy meditating.
They're just happy. They're just happy you showed
And
up.
as a Jewish person, I can tell you the Catholic music is a lot better.
The morning meditation is easiest to get in because I just get up 20 minutes earlier. And I was telling Andrea that George Stephanopoulos gets up and he does his morning meditation at 2:30 in the morning because he's on. And he says he couldn't get away because he couldn't do it without it because it's a deeper rest than sleep. It's more regenerating. The afternoon, I have to put it in my schedule the day before because in the middle of the day, I'll never find the time. So I look, what's my window look like from 2 o'clock on? Oh, okay, 6 o'clock, 6:30, 2 o'clock, I'm going to my sister's. I value it. I make it a priority because no one else is going to. The thing about TM is, unlike other forms of meditation, it's not a generic or mass meditation. It's taught individually. You have your own teacher. And if you're interested in learning, then you can email me. I'll give you my email address, bob@davidlynchfoundation.org, and I will put you in, either teach you myself or put you in touch with a teacher. There's great teachers here. But you get it. In this one, it's like it's tailored just for you. And you get it. I mean, if I can teach a 10-year-old kid with ADD to sit for 10 minutes and enjoy that experience, then any of us can do it.
Well, we now have a lot of questions. Let's move around the room.
Andrea, can I just ask a quick question while, I was wondering about some perspective. My mother was diagnosed in 1991 at age 61 with early onset Alzheimer's. And it used to frustrate us as a family because we heard these things about maintaining your brain and all these things. In 1991, so much less was known about Alzheimer's. But my mother was an avid reader. She did the New York Times crossword puzzle. She was ahead of her time in her career, in her early career. And it frustrated us because we thought she did all those things. But then my father finally had the perspective one day, perhaps she wasn't diagnosed until 61 because she did do all those things. So I mean, I believe in that completely. But my frustration sitting here right now, I think everything I'm hearing is wonderful and empowering and enlightening. My question, and this is just a perspective on your part, we see success stories with cancer. We see success stories with heart disease. We see success stories with brain tumors. We don't see success stories with Alzheimer's. Nobody survives Alzheimer's disease. And I'm wondering if that's why this is a beautiful panel, and it's so wonderful information. Why don't more people know about this? Why we hear about cancer prevention. We hear about it all the time. People still have so many questions and are so uninformed about Alzheimer's disease, and it's just frustrating.
Well, I think that there's, go ahead, go ahead.
Is this one any better? Yes, it is. For so long, it was hidden in family closets that we didn't discuss it. And also, hard to diagnose, to disaggregate. There's Alzheimer's, and there are other forms of dementia, what we used to think of as senility, and normal forgetfulness, and fatigue, and all the other reasons why I forget names on the air, and hopefully someone in my ear will, fill in the gap if I've been up all night doing a Today Show piece and then working on my show and then on nightly news. But there are all these other things, and then you worry, well, what are the genetics, and is this coming back? I mean, we all go through this as we age. My husband, who is quite a bit older than I am, says it is normal to forget where you've put your eyeglasses. It's not normal to, as the doctors who give you these tests will tell you, it's not normal to not figure out where the hands of a clock are supposed to be. So the science is catching up. There's a great deal of research, as everyone here can tell you, and many of you caregivers can say, we're learning more and more, but we haven't solved that puzzle. There are many types of cancer and many that are not curable. And we all have friends who've suffered through that. But we're now discovering through immunotherapy and other techniques that there is a way of unlocking the genetic code that is making some things that were incurable curable. But Alzheimer's has been the one resistant. I think, Marita,
One of the satisfactions of doing this story in the Post was that I've never done a piece of journalism where the subjects were so grateful and so thankful. Every time I'd finish an interview, someone at NIH, someone at, thank you, Marita, thank you for doing this, because they really are working in virtual obscurity. And there's a lot of shame and fear in some pockets of various communities around the country. Alzheimer's is considered a mental illness. And because it's considered wrongly a mental illness, people do not want to talk about it. In the African American community, we have a lot of work to do around that. I say now that just as Barbara Steinem said, that if men had to get abortions, abortions would be a sacrament. If young people got Alzheimer's, we would be talking about it a lot more. I think there's ageism as well that diminishes the interest in it.
Now we have time, I think, only for one more question. So in the back, you've been patiently waiting.
No, thank you all so much. The whole day has been really impressive and a wonderful, wonderful gathering. And my name is Dixie Noonan. I'm on the board of the Women's Alzheimer's Movement and super excited to be here. And my question is, and one of the things that I love, and the reason I'm involved in Maria's organization, is because she really takes it to the personal level. What can we do as individuals to make our own bodies stronger, to make our own brains stronger and healthier, and what can we do to help others in that same way? I am curious from the panel, though, if you could just illuminate a little bit for us, what's the current state of medical research? I mean, is there a cure in sight? Is there something beyond the sort of personal reflections that we're doing that's going to come down the pike, and when is that going to happen? Thank you.
Okay, it's a big question, but Anne, you take it first, and then I'll let
I don't
Dr.
know
Peek.
the answer. I mean, well, I'll just say two things. One is that we don't have a medical cure in sight right now. I mean, Dr. Peek can probably speak to this, but we don't. But I will say this just to answer because this is very much related to the previous question, which is that starting in 2020, the rate of growth in the over age 85 population is going to start to accelerate really quickly. And if you've read Thomas Friedman's book, Thank You for Being Late, he talks about how important it is, the rate of acceleration, this rate of change and the rate of change is what really brings about change. So I think that as more and more people enter that age group, we're going to see an explosion. Even though Alzheimer's is going down as a percentage of that population, the growth in the size of that population is going to mean we're going to have so many more people having this experience in their families, and I think it will have a really a huge effect on a whole lot of areas, including medical research. But as of right now, I don't know that we have anything really promising on the horizon, but I will definitely defer to Dr. Peak.
We're going to give the last word to Dr. Peak as
So-
we wrap this up.
And first of all, it's a fabulous question. We as medical researchers in the field are going like bats out of you-know-where, trying to figure this out. The fact that we hadn't sussed out the woman's part of this also comes from the fact that not until the 1990s, when Bernadine Healy became the first woman at the National Institutes of Health when I was there, did we even include women in this. And so there's that. But I must tell you, and this comes to your wonderful question, and that is, Alzheimer's is attached not just to mental health per se, but to aging, as you said. And aging's a bitch. And one of the things that happens, it's no cure for aging. All right? So if it's attached to aging, then we have to stop thinking about this. We have to be very careful about this. And that's why the National Institute of Aging has really taken this on in a big way. And most of the biggest research is actually going to be coming through that type of a channel, because we're kind of getting a win-win. We're trying to understand the aging process. At the same time, we're looking at some of these things that happen to us as we age, because we have senescent cells. We are going through changes. I mean, we can't, go into a fantasy world, say that's not happening. So it's aging, it's mental health. A lot of these big chunks now are now being parsed, into smaller pieces, so that we can now put this huge pie, this puzzle together piece by piece. But we are getting there, so hang on.
And with that, I just want to say a word again, thanking Maria Shriver for the extraordinary public service. And to all of you and all of these great panelists, my friend Susan LaSala, Sandy Gleistein, just thanks for being here. And everybody, maybe getting old is not for the faint of heart, as my mother used to say, but it really is, we're in this together, all of us. Thank you.
We have just a couple of housekeeping issues. First of all, to thank Equinox.
You're,
No, she's going to give me hers.
no, I think it's working. You just hold it up.
Okay, fine. That's her job. Equinox is a founding partner. Couldn't do it without them. And Linda and Jeannie Shriver earlier thanked all the sponsors. And by the way, Maria really knew what she was doing when she picked you two to kick this off at the beginning. And unlike Andrea's fabulous husband, I can find my glasses, but I'm at the stage in my life where I can't see with or without them. So if you could hold these, I'll try without. These are the fundraising results that Maria and Sandy asked us to go over. The Women's Alzheimer's Movement thanks everybody and all of you guys who showed up and spent the morning here for raising money for Move for Minds today. As of now, we have raised, and still counting, $460,000 today nationwide. The money is still coming in, and all of the money, 100% of it, will go to the women-focused research for Alzheimer's. Now we have to talk about the top fundraisers. If you are here, and I recognize one, our top 5 fundraisers in the Washington area are, and please forgive me if I butcher your name, Holly Warlick, if you're here. Holly Warlick raised $1,700. Yay, Holly. Katie Whelan raised $2,200. Julie Cassidy raised $2,575. Girl, I thought you said you didn't have any time. Look at you. Sally Jenkins raised $2,900.50. And may I say, this is the very famous Sally Jenkins, Washington sports writer. The absolute best. The best. And Sydney, is it Weiner or Weiner? Weiner, okay, $4,400.
Sydney is a producer at NBC News and was my former intern.
We all have been there at one time or another. In addition to all of this, to raising the money, WHAM supports the caregivers, which Ann so eloquently talked about, for the benefits of time off for the physical and emotional toll that it takes in caring for Alzheimer's patients. So through home care assistance, we are giving 2 free days of home care to a caregiver in every one of the 8 Move for Mind cities today. And the woman who is the recipient here is not here today, and her name is Deborah Case. So let's hope that she enjoys 2 days off. So that's it. Remember, you can continue to fundraise to support research, caregiving on your Move for Minds page. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep on going. So read all your brain health tips. Commit to following them through everything all these fabulous panelists said. Pass them along and keep your minds moving. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us.
That's a great idea.
Brittany, will everybody be able to see what we did here today?
The video.
The video? It'll be on the website, right? Okay. Thank you all again so much. I know Maria would be so proud of all of this. And enjoy the rest of your day.